So here I am, I'm at a train station on the suburbs of Liverpool and I'm going in to see what they buried when they built a shopping centre. Let's go. Well, I've made my way here to Liverpool, to be more precise, the Liverpool One shopping centre, more of which later. Although I'm not here to see the shopping centre. They put together a heritage trail showing what the shopping centre was built on top of, and what it's been built on top of is some of the most important history in Liverpool. So I thought I'd come and have a little walk around the trail, share it with you, show you some of the history of this amazing seaport. So let's go that way. So I hope you can hear this over the wind. In front of me there is the Strand, which would have been at the time the course of the River Mersey. As I swing round, you can see a rise in the ground where those steps are in front of you. That was the site of Liverpool Castle originally. Now you would have got wet feet had you wanted to visit that castle, because this entire area that I'm stood in now was once the pool, which gives Liverpool its name. So up until the 1700s, Liverpool was a small town of around about 5,000 people, and they had plans. They wanted the town to become bigger. The pool here was tidal. The Mersey has a large tidal range, so it wasn't ideal. So eventually they petitioned the government through their MP and were given permission to build a dock. Now originally they were thinking of building like a ship canal here, but that was till a certain person turned up on the scene and changed everything. And that man was Thomas Steers. Thomas Steers had an idea, and his idea was to reclaim land from the Liverpool or Liverpool and make the dock there. So that's what he did. He reclaimed land, and as you can see over there, the road you see running across would have been where the river was, but if you look beyond it now, you can see the buildings of the Albert Dock and Liverpool Dock. Well, that dock is the dock he built, and it was the first fully enclosed commercial dock in the world, beating everyone, London, everybody. Liverpool was the first. So through that hole in the floor, just behind me, you can actually see part of the original port wall of the original dock. This is, as I said earlier on, one of the first commercial enclosed dock in the world. So you've got major maritime history going on right down that very hole, and people just walk past it and don't even know it's there. A name synonymous with Liverpool is William Hutchison. There are many places named after him. He was actually dock harbour master here for 34 years, and during his time he collected tidal records, which are to this day used to study the effects of climate change on the area. So behind me is John Lewis, and to my right is the Liverpool One bus station. We're on the site of the 5th Custom House that was in Liverpool, but it was badly bombed during the war. As you can see from the picture, it's quite an amazing building, but it was bombed and set fire to, and then bombed on 3 consecutive nights, and despite local opposition, it was demolished after the war. Standing now in Cleveland Square. When the docks were first built, this was one of the most highly sought after addresses in the area. Sea captains and traders would have been here, and later on it became Liverpool's first Chinatown. During the Second World War, an air raid shelter here at the square was bombed, killing 16 people, and at that point it was felt the Chinese community should move inland to where it is today. Liverpool has always had a very vibrant Chinese community due to the fact of it being a seaport. Well, you know me, if there's coffee on offer, I'm there, and here we are. There's a coffee shop, so I'm going to stop and have a coffee. As you can see from the pictures on screen, Cleveland Square now is a mere shadow of its former self. Very little remains. There's a piece of cobbled road outside the coffee shop I'm sitting at, and that's pretty much it. The buildings along to my right, the coffee house is part of, are part of it. But apart from that, if you look here behind me, it's now housing estates. Nothing left. And over there is a very busy road. I don't know what this building was, but now it's an electricity substation, obviously for Liverpool, because it's quite a chunky piece of kit you can see sitting over there in the yard. I'll try and find out more and put it in the description below. So that was great. I was just talking to the lads back there in the substation about this wall that is behind me that I want to find out about. They knew nothing. But what they did tell me is apparently up here somewhere is a jail, an old Liverpool jail that is now a pub. And there it is. So I was asking the guys inside the power station back there if they knew anything about the wall, and they didn't. But one of them told me about this. It's the Bridewell. It used to be the Crown Jail, and now it's a pub. So in the olden days, you went into a pub, got pissed and ended up in a jail. Here they cut out the middleman. You just have a good old drink and there you are, you're already in prison. But now it's a pub. Fantastic. We've actually come off the trail here, and I'm really glad we have. I lived in Liverpool and I never even knew this street existed. This is obviously, you can see the influence of the buildings along here from the docks still existing today. You can clearly see this area is inextricably connected to the docklands and trade. Imagine how busy this would have been with horses and carts up here. There's also, it says on the building there, it's a rope works. There was rope works around here. This place would have been a hive of industry. Now it's a quiet back street, and back over there you can see the Bridewell. So I'm now stood in what was known as Sailor Town Triangle, and back in the day when the sailors used to come here, they needed somewhere to go sleep and shop and get entertainment, and being a seaport there were unscrupulous people and the sailors used to be robbed and all sorts of things went down. So some charitable people got together and decided to build a sailors' home, and it sadly closed its doors in 1969, and like everything else was taken apart and dismantled and gotten rid of. What we're left here now is with the gates, the original gates of that sailors' mission, which housed sailors for well over 100 years in the middle of town here. If that eagle looks familiar to you, the reason is it's an American eagle, and it's denoting the point where the American consulate used to be here in Liverpool. America formed another point on the slave triangle, and trade was a highly lucrative business. So the Americans wanted their foot on British soil on this port. So that's where it was. Now, whether you like it or not, this is pretty much town centre development in the 2020s. Love it or loathe it, this is what we've got. I have to admit to you, in all the time this has been here, this is my first walk around Liverpool one, so I'm seeing a lot of this for the first time as well. Pretty crazy. At least thank God they've had the common sense to not just demolish everything and to actually incorporate some of the old buildings into the design of this. It's good to see. So here we are stood in College Lane, formerly known as Workhouse Lane, and to the right there, the warehouse you can see is typical of the buildings that would have lined this street 200 years ago. These would have been all along. You can see the hoist where goods were taken up and brought down from the upper floors, still in position. These would have lined the street all the way down there, as you can see, into Liverpool 1 itself. Here I am in Hanover Street, which was once a quiet country lane, until the rich merchants moved in the 1800s and turned it into a desirable area. Now, here we are in the middle of Liverpool, and it is a busy thoroughfare, quite soulless. Well, it had to happen, didn't it? We're in Liverpool, there had to be a Beatles reference, and here it is, the Epstein Theater, named after Brian Epstein. Originally opened in 1913 as the Neptune Theater, but renamed in honour of the great man who brought us the Beatles. And this rather interesting building is known locally as the Bling Bling. Rather an amazing piece of architecture, I think. That way is Central Station, Lime Street Station, around past the Epstein Theatre, straight down there School Lane towards the Blue Coat. So I'm now walking down School Lane, past the iconic Bling Bling building, towards the Blue Coat, a famous Liverpool school. And so here we are at the internationally famous Blue Coat School, here in the heart of Liverpool. Sadly, someone's left a load of old plastic tat laying around the place. Presumably this is supposed to be art. So, the Blue Coat is the oldest surviving building in Liverpool city centre. It opened in 1717 as a charity school, but relocated to Wavertree around about 1906. This place was threatened with demolition, but back in 1927 it was saved with the creation of the UK's first bespoke art centre. Now you can say what you like about these guys, but they sure knew how to make a door. Check that. And up here, ladies and gentlemen, is the Athenaeum, a gentlemen's members club set up in 1799 as a library and newsroom for the merchants of Liverpool. Very august, I'm sure. So here I am in Peter's Lane. Now, Peter's Lane once had a church. It also was once home to silversmiths, and many metal trades and merchants and other uses. So as you can see, it's completely changed now to its current use as a shopping centre, and I have to say, rather a good one. As you can see, some of these buildings are absolutely huge. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 9 stories high, this building. So we're now stood in Paradise Street. Originally built in the early 1700s as a shopping thoroughfare, I wonder if the people who built it then would recognise it now. I don't recognise it, and I only lived here 20 years ago. I don't know about you, but I just find all this very faceless, utilitarian, and not really very people friendly. But hey, that's the way they build it now, isn't it? I don't think I'm far from it when I describe these buildings as cathedrals to shopping. Here's a sign of the times. Get your mask from a vending machine. Fantastic. This is the entrance to the IMAX here in Liverpool. Now, I don't know about you, some people like this sort of architecture. Personally, I'm not a big fan. What do you think? I mean, this walk today has sharply brought into contrast the architecture and the way they did things in the past and the way they do them now. Which do you prefer? I mean, I'm not one of these people who thinks we should stick our heads in the mud and, you know, wrap everything in cotton wool, but I just wonder, sometimes, you know, they take the soul out of these places. It's just a corporate mishmash of different IDs, different logos, different brands. There's nothing here, it's just corporate. And it's what we're supposed to like, I guess. Now this is a view that simply didn't exist when I lived in Liverpool. It was what they call brownfield sites, empty derelict buildings, and they'd have come along and built this. Now, do you prefer this to the old Liverpool? I don't know. It's a nice wide open plaza, but it's just all the usual corporate crap. Let's move on. Here I am in the heart of Liverpool One shopping centre, and I have to tell you now that I used to live here, but I actually don't know whereabouts I am. I don't recognise anything here. None of this existed when I lived here, and they've totally transformed and changed the centre of Liverpool. I mean, completely. I mean, it's a whole new area with loads of this architecture, which either you love or you hate. So this is Wall Street, once known as Thomas Street. It used to be, in years past, it used to be a really small, tiny street full of little hovels, many in cellars, because in 1790, 1 in 2 people in the city lived underground. Can you imagine that? They wouldn't recognise it now, that's for certain. So where I'm stood now is in South John Street. South John Street was once a very busy shopping thoroughfare. That is up until a certain occurrence of the Second World War and the Germans bombed the bejesus out of it. And it never really recovered. It never really recovered. It wasn't one road, it was a kind of a collection of curvy streets. But with the building of Liverpool 1, obviously, it's been incorporated and it's now as busy as it ever was. Whether it's better than the original, who knows? So, here we are at the end of our walk in Chavasse Park, named after Noel Chavasse. Noel Chavasse was a surgeon in World War I, and he was awarded not one, but 2 Victoria Crosses for his gallantry rescuing and treating soldiers at battles such as Passchendaele in World War I. So I hope you've enjoyed this walk around what is Liverpool 1. It's a shopping centre, it's the centre of Liverpool now. Whether you like it or not is immaterial, it's here. And it's covered up a lot of history. I hope I've uncovered some of that history in this film today. I particularly like where I had coffee, down in the old Chinatown. That was really nice down there. But it's been fascinating because one of the things I've noticed walking around here today is that I don't know any of this. I mean, I lived here. I moved here in the 80s, early 80s, so of course that's too many years ago to remember. But even though I was here for several years and this hadn't started, this all took place in the last 10 years, so this is all very new. However, you know, they've tried to make, I think, the centre of Liverpool a cohesive commercial area, and they've done it to a certain extent, and a lot of people like it. I just wish a bit more of the history had been protected. It was good when we saw the warehouses from the 1700s that were still in situ back there in, I can't remember the name of the street, but we saw, and it was good because they had been kept and incorporated. I just wish there had been a bit more kept and incorporated. I mean, you can't see it, but just to my left, I'm just going to move the camera. Over there, between that gap, those buildings that you can see there running across behind those trees, that's actually the Albert Dock. We're that close to the historic docks of Liverpool, and yet none of the people on those ships would recognise any of this. I don't know. It's been interesting. It's been interesting contrasting the history of the past with the future and the present, and I've enjoyed doing it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. But for now, this is Gabriel signing off from Liverpool 1, and I'll see you on the next one, hey, wherever that is. But for now, bye bye.